Good evening, folks. This is Matt Buckman here, Director of Referee Development for CNRA. As usual, please click the raise your hand icon. Let me know you can hear me. Wonderful. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. A couple of quick housekeeping items. If you've been on this call before, you'll be familiar with this. Please, as we go through the call this evening, use the chat feature to ask any questions you may have or to converse with one another. We have a lot of people on the call this evening, and so we're not able to enable the speaking feature so that everybody has the ability to speak to each other or to me. So please use the chat feature if you would like to ask any questions as we go through our content this evening. Please do not use the Q&A feature. I will not answer any questions that come through on the Q&A feature, as it's just another thing that I have to check, another box that I have to keep open on my screen. So kindly just use the chat feature only when asking any questions. I will refer to it as we go through the content this evening, and also we'll have a few places to stop and ask for any questions as we go. Tonight, we're going to talk about free kick management. We spent a number of sessions over the last few months talking about decision-making accuracy, going through laws of the games, refreshers, things of that nature. So tonight, we're going to talk about what we do once we've already called a foul and we're looking to get the ball back into play, particularly when we call free kicks in and around the penalty area, where we might have to set a wall and deal with frustrated players, maybe because they don't like the foul we called. Any of those kinds of scenarios that we see in games quite frequently, we'll go over in some detail tonight how to address those matters. So first, I thought we would take a moment and do a bit of a refresher on what kind of free kicks we actually have. So pause for a moment here, and let's go over to the kinds of free kicks that we have. This is from the IFAB Laws of the Game. If you're not familiar with this, I highly recommend you just Google IFAB, and there will be a Laws of the Game tab that you can hit right at the top here. You'll go and you'll see these different buttons you can click. Go to Laws 1 to 17, and it'll pull up the 17 laws, and of course, fouls and misconduct are what we're going to look at to remind ourselves of the different kinds of free kicks that we have. There are two basic kinds of free kicks that we can award, a direct free kick and an indirect free kick. These are the fouls that can occur that would result in a direct free kick: charging, jumping, kicking, pushing, striking, tackling, tripping, a lot of things we see game to game. Handball, holding, impeding an opponent with contact. I want to emphasize the with contact there. We see impeding getting called a lot, even though there's been contact. So if there is contact between two players and you choose to call a foul, it is going to be a direct free kick, not an indirect free kick. The only time we give an indirect free kick for impeding is if there is no contact between the players. Biting or spitting, which hopefully we don't have too often, though there was a great headline today about a player suspended for 5 years for biting somebody in a very inappropriate place. And then throwing the ball at somebody or an object. Anything of those natures, we're going to have a direct free kick. So I'll encourage you to review this on your own a little bit for direct free kicks. More often than not, these are the free kicks we're going to be awarding, particularly in and around the penalty area, as we'll be discussing this evening. The other option, of course, is an indirect free kick. This is going to be playing in a dangerous manner. And please remember, this is going to be without any contact. So if somebody, dangerous play, puts their boot up in somebody's face but doesn't make any contact, that's when we have an indirect free kick. If someone plays in a dangerous manner but makes contact with the opponent, we're going to have kicking, tripping, charging, jumping into, any number of direct free kick offenses. So playing in a dangerous manner, impeding the progress of an opponent without any contact being made, dissent, abusive language, etc., preventing the goalkeeper from releasing the ball with their hands or kicking the ball. So obviously this is not something that's going to happen in the attacking penalty area. This will be somebody trying to prevent the goalkeeper from releasing the ball. And then committing any other offense not mentioned in the law for which play is stopped to caution or send off a player. So if you ever stop a game for the sole purpose of cautioning a player, your restart would be an indirect free kick. And then, of course, we have a number of different offenses here that the goalkeeper commit that would also be indirect free kicks. So really what we're going to focus on this evening are the kinds of fouls that happen in and around the penalty area. 99% of the time, they're going to be direct free kick offenses, and we'll go through how to handle those free kicks. So a question here for those direct free kick offenses: should each of them also result in a yellow card? No, not necessarily. So there's a completely different criteria that we use for determining if something should be a yellow card or a red card. This is just the list of the fouls. You can charge, jump, kick, push, strike, and either, well, strike maybe not so much, but a lot of these fouls you can commit without any kind of misconduct. What we look for with misconduct are these three categories. If something is careless, meaning it's just a very simple foul, there's not a lot of force to it, etc., then you're not going to have any misconduct. If it is reckless, meaning a player has acted with disregard to the danger or consequences of the opponent, then you want to show a yellow card. If a player uses excessive force when committing this foul and endangers the safety of the opponent, then they are shown a red card. So those are the criteria we use for deciding if a yellow card or red card needs to be issued. We don't want to show a yellow card or a red card each and every time one of these happens. We want to focus on this instead of on these for issuing yellow cards. But we're not here to talk about misconduct, so I'm going to move us along. So these are the kinds of free kicks that we want to be thinking about when we give these fouls. All right. So having done a refresher on free kicks, now I'd like to move us into a discussion on how we actually manage a free kick, particularly in and around the penalty area. That's really going to be our focus this evening, is these fouls that happen around the penalty area. What do we see when they happen, and how do we manage to get the ball back into play as smoothly as possible? So the first thing we want to do to manage a free kick in and around the penalty area is move to the spot of the foul immediately. There's a number of reasons we want you to do that. One, we want you to check on the fouled player. So if somebody goes to ground, they're tripped, they're pulled, they're tackled, who knows what, they fall down, we want you to immediately run to the spot because A, you're going to want to check on that foul player. Are they hurt? Do they need a trainer or their coach to come out? What is the status of that player who was fouled? You may need to talk to the guilty party. Sorry, not party. If the player who committed the foul needs to be warned or needs to be talked to about their conduct, you need to be close by to do it. You may need to show misconduct if it was a reckless challenge, if it was a tactical foul. If you need to show misconduct, you need to do it close by to the player who committed the foul, and you need to get there quickly to do it. And then you may need to manage any other emotions that come up in and around that free kick. It's really common on free kicks around the penalty area for a player who's guilty of an offense to get frustrated, or teammates of that player to get frustrated, and there might be some sort of altercation in and around that spot of the foul. And so we want your presence to be there to help to manage that situation. So a question here: what is the best thing to do if players ever get into a fight? Get out of the way. We'll do in the future perhaps a session on how to handle a mass confrontation. But if you ever have two players that are getting into a physical fight and you're not able to get there to prevent it from even starting, then what we want you to do is get out of the way. Don't get in between them. Don't try to break it up. Let the players and the coaches handle that. We don't want you to get hurt when handling any kind of physical altercation. Step back, get out of the way, write down the numbers of any players who participate, and then mete out the appropriate sanctions, be it a red card if they're punching each other, yellow cards potentially if they're pushing each other. Just depends on the nature of the conflict. But if you have two players fighting, just get out of the way. Don't try to get involved. All right, so first thing we want you to do when you call a foul, get to the spot of that foul. There's going to be things you're going to need to do that come next in this process, and all of it requires you to be at the spot of the foul. So as soon as you see the foul, blow the whistle, start to run towards it at pace, get close to where that foul happened, check on the player who's on the ground, make sure they're okay, talk to the guilty party, show them a yellow card if they need it or a red card depending on the nature of the foul, and be there to manage any other different personalities or frustrations that are going on in that specific play. So I'm going to take a minute here and read through some of these questions. What type of kick should be called if the goalkeeper picks up the ball when his or her teammate plays the ball back to the goalkeeper and she picks it up? That is an indirect free kick. So folks who are on this call, so Shreyas in particular, you're giving folks wrong answers here. So I would ask you to not answer the questions that come up in the chat. Let's please allow me to answer questions that people ask in the chat. Do not answer them for each other, because that's how we spread around incorrect information like what we have here in the chat. So if a play is kicked back to the goalkeeper, teammate kicks the ball back to the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper picks it up, it is an indirect free kick because you're calling handball against the goalkeeper from the place where the goalkeeper has picked it up. But folks, let's try to focus not on the kinds of fouls we're going to have, but on how we manage the free kick. We can do a lot of different Q&As about different scenarios. Let's try to focus on what our topic is this evening. All right, next step, you're on the spot, you've checked on the player, you've talked to the guilty party if it's necessary, you've got everybody under control. The next thing we want you to do is set the spot of the free kick. This becomes important with higher level youth games because smarter players will try to improve the position of the free kick based on whatever tactical advantage they're looking for. So we want you to run to the spot of the foul and mark either with a gesture or with your physical presence where you want that free kick to happen from. And we want you to stand there. Once everybody's gotten all sorted out, everybody's calmed down, we want you to stand right next to where you want the ball set and instruct the player to put the ball exactly where you want them. So wait until everybody has settled down, handle all of the emotions that result from the foul that happened. Once everybody's calm, now turn your attention to getting the ball set. Spot the ball exactly where you want it. Point to the ground. We're not using spray anybody at this level, so please don't take spray out on the field with you. It's not an approved tool at the youth game, so please don't take spray with you. But mark on the ground with your hand or just make a gesture to the ground where you want the ball spotted. And referees don't leave the spot of the ball until they've put it down where you want it. So stand there with them. They put it down. Once it's down and they've released it and they start to back up, now you can move on to the next part. Whichever AR is closest, we want you to keep an eye on the location of the ball. I'll get to that here in a second because the referee is going to go on to do a number of different tasks to get this free kick set up. And it's not uncommon for an attacker to set the ball down, wait till the referee walks away, and then pick the ball back up and move it. We don't want that to happen, so somebody, be it the closest AR or the trailing AR, needs to keep an eye on the location of the ball and make sure it's not moved in any significant way once the referee has moved on to the next part of the process. So, get everybody settled, spot the ball where you want it. Referees wait until the ball's on the ground and the player has moved away from it, and then you can move on to the next step that we'll get to here in a second. And ARs, please keep your eye on the ball. Question here, can we address quick free kicks, especially near the penalty area? Yes, very briefly we can talk about that. If you call a foul, particularly in and around the penalty area, they need to play the ball pretty much immediately for a quick free kick to be possible. Once the referee has engaged in the free kick, meaning their presence is now a distraction to the defenders, we cannot allow a quick free kick to happen. So if there's a quick free kick in and around the penalty area, it needs to be pretty much immediately. So if they get fouled and jump right back up before you can even really get in there, put the ball down and play it, great. Let them go ahead and do it. But once you as the referee have gotten sort of close to the foul location, you're engaging with players, you're distracting defenders to try to move them back, whatever it might be, that's the point at which it becomes what we call a ceremonial free kick, which means they're going to have to wait for the referee's whistle. So a quick free kick is only possible if they do it pretty much immediately after the foul happens. Otherwise, once the referee engages with players in and around the spot of the free kick, we're going to have to make it a ceremonial free kick, which means they have to wait for the whistle to be blown to restart play. Does that help answer the question there about free kicks, Gustav? Perfect, thank you. So a question here, can we explain a bit about what we mean when we say wait until everybody is settled? When you have free kicks in and around the penalty area, you might have some players get upset. You might have somebody who's hurt. There's a number of different things that can happen. You want to handle all of those things before you try to put the ball on the ground and worry about the location of the free kick. So when I say wait until everybody is settled, what I mean by that is anybody who was upset about the call has now moved on and isn't arguing anymore. The player who was hurt has been checked on and the trainer has left, et cetera, et cetera. So any things that require management as a result of the foul itself, do those first. And then once everybody is sort of settled and isn't worried about the foul anymore, now you can move on and focus on where the ball needs to be placed. Does that make sense? Question here, what if they're still upset about the decided call? Manage that until it's done. If it means you have to show a yellow card, show a yellow card. That's fine. Manage all of that until it's done. Then once it's done, move on to setting the ball. The last thing you want to do is be trying to set up the free kick while people are still yelling at you, because then it's going to be distracted. It's just not a good environment for the referee to focus. And so you've already called a free kick. They're yelling at you. Address those behaviors. Get everybody to stop before you move on to actually trying to administer the free kick. All right, next step in the process. We want to move the wall back to 10 yards. So you've called the foul, you've gone over and you've managed whatever personalities needed to be managed. You've spotted the ball where you wanted it. Everybody's back. The attacking players aren't going to touch the ball anymore. Now you turn your attention to where the defensive wall is going to be. So what we want you to do is mark off 10 yards. So wait until the ball's on the ground and set, like we said, and then put your whistle up and ask them to wait for the whistle. That's how you show everybody that this is a ceremonial free kick, that the play cannot restart until you've shown the whistle and asked the attacking player to please wait for that whistle. It's very common to hold it up by your head and point to it so that everybody who's watching the game knows that you've asked the attacker to please wait for the whistle. It's also a courtesy to give to the goalkeeper, because goalkeepers oftentimes don't want to go set the wall until they know they have to wait to the whistle for it to restart. And so once everybody's calmed down, you've managed the situation, you've got the ball spotted, the next thing we want you to do is look directly at that attacker, put the whistle up by your head, point to it, and say, please wait for the whistle. That's a signal to everybody watching the game that play will not restart until you blow the whistle. That's what we call a ceremonial free kick. So show them the whistle and ask them to wait for the whistle before they restart. Then we want you to actually pace off 10 yards. Now, this is a bit, you're going to get a lot of different opinions when you talk to referee coaches or experienced referees about whether or not you should pace off 10 yards. The guidance we're giving to referees at the very highest level is pace off those 10 yards. The reason for it is if you just sort of guess or if you backpedal while keeping your eye on the ball, et cetera, you may not mark exactly 10 yards. In fact, more often than not, we see a lot of walls set at 7 and 8 yards because the referee is distracted or they're backpedaling or they just don't know what 10 yards looks like. And so if you actually mark off the 10 yards, pace them off, everybody can count the number of steps that you've taken, and you can very clearly indicate that you've taken 10 steps, practice how many steps you need to get to 10, or practice how to take a 1 yard step if you're able to. Some of our younger folks may not be able to do that, but mark off 10 yards by walking it. So a question here, how many steps are in 10 yards? Obviously, that's going to vary based on how tall you are. I'm just about 6'1" tall, which means I can take 1 step per yard. Somebody who's 5'2" is not going to be able to do the same thing. So practice, go out on a football field and figure out either how to make 10 steps into 10 yards. Can you take 1 yard per step? Or if not, how many of your normal steps does it take to get you to 10 yards? But please, whatever you do, don't eyeball it. A lot of referees just try to eyeball what 10 yards looks like, and that can lead to further argument with players. If they don't think you've given them the full 10 yards as an attacker, they're going to argue with you. If the defenders think you've given more than 10 yards, they're going to argue with you. So that's why we actually want you to stop, turn your back on the ball, and mark off those 10 yards very deliberately. That's why in the previous slide we said, ARs, please keep an eye on the ball for your referee, because we're going to ask the referee to turn their back and walk off the 10 yards. While you're marching off those 10 yards, referees, you should also be looking what's going on in and around the penalty area or behind the wall. Don't look at the ground. Don't look back at the ball. We're more worried about what's happening off the ball in this moment than we are what's happening with the ball. So while you mark off those 10 yards, your head should be up, and you should be scanning the rest of the players who are in and around the penalty area to make sure they're not going to do anything off the ball, like punch somebody or elbow somebody or kick somebody, who knows what. So keep your head up and look around while you're marching off those 10 yards. And then once you get to what you determine to be 10 yards, please ask the players to join you at that spot, the players who are going to be in the defensive wall. Please ask them to join you. Don't say, hey, get over here or get back or whatever it is. Say, folks, please join me here. Guys, please join me here. Ladies, please join me here. The wall is here, please. Ask them to come back to you at the 10-yard mark. It's going to be more effective than if you try to yell at them or if you try to be a little bit more curt. So ask them to join you at 10 yards and wait until they get back to where the 10-yard mark is. Once they're there, now you have a wall set at 10 yards. So while we're talking about walls, we have to talk about the attacking players in the wall. There was a law change this year that impacts when attackers can be in the wall and where they need to be. So this was the law change. When there is a defensive wall of at least 3 players, all attacking team players must be at least 1 meter from the wall. If they don't honor that request when the ball gets put back into play, you award an indirect free kick going the other direction. So again, a repeat, when there is a defensive wall of at least 3 players, all attacking team players must be 1 meter from the wall. Now, if there's only 2 players in the wall, we don't worry about it. Attackers can stand wherever they want. But if there are 3 players and more, then we cannot allow any attackers to be any closer than 1 meter for the wall. And here's the reason why. This happened to American referee Mark Geiger in the World Cup back in 2018. He sets the wall, but because all the attackers in red there are in and amongst the defending players, now we have problems. And watch back here. Behind the referee's back, we have a headbutt. And now we have all other kinds of problems. This is the kind of stuff we're looking to avoid when we have attackers in the wall. Notice what the referee's looking at right now. He's busy worried about somebody else, and behind his back and off to his right, we have problems. The referee has no idea it's happening. So to avoid these problems, they changed the law to say anytime we have more than three or more defending players in a wall, attackers are not allowed to be within a meter of that wall. Another example. So again, players in the wall. This is an attacker in white trying to work his way into the wall. And now we have a problem. So because of these problems, we don't want attackers in the wall anymore, so the law was changed. So again, you have 4 players in the wall. This attacking player is not allowed to stand there. They have to be 1 meter away from the wall. This is what it looks like if it's done correctly. The wall is set, and a player can stand next to it, in front of it, behind it. It doesn't matter where, but they must be 1 meter away from it for it to be valid. You're going to have to tell them that because a lot of these folks won't know this law now. And so you're going to have to tell them they have to stand back. They have to be 1 meter away. And then as the ball is being played, if they encroach upon that 1 meter, you blow the whistle and you give an indirect free kick from the spot where the infraction happened. Any questions on that law change? Question here, would the indirect free kick be from the point of the original kick or where the wall was located? It would be from the point of the infraction. We had another question here. Can you confirm that free kick distance for U12 and under is 8 yards? You heard that was the case for NorCal. I cannot confirm that. That would be a local rules of competition, not an IFAB law. So I'm not familiar with what NorCal might have. So that would be something you would need to question the folks at NorCal. So a question here, can they be 1 meter in front of the wall? Yes, as I said, 1 meter in front of the wall, to the side of the wall, behind the wall. They just have to be 1 meter away from the wall. Any other questions? Question here, do you award an indirect free kick after the kick is taken if they encroach? Yes, that's what you want to do. If the encroachment happens before the free kick is taken, don't allow the free kick to happen. Go in, move the player away from the wall, get out of the way, and then take the free kick. If they continue to encroach, blow the whistle, let them take the kick, and then call the indirect free kick the other way. Any other questions on that law change? Linda, thank you for clarifying on the U12s. All right, moving on to what's next then. After you've spotted the ball, you've moved the wall back to where it needs to be, the next thing we want you to do is move to whatever position you need to be for the restart. So again, we're waiting until all the players are in the correct positions they're supposed to be. The wall is set at 10 yards. There are no other defenders within 10 yards of the ball. The attackers are not too close to the wall. Everybody's good. They're in the right place. Now the next thing you do is you move to the position that you need to be in to see the next phase of play. Sorry, we had a question here. Is the goal disallowed if encroachment occurs on the direct free kick? Once again, if the attacking team encroaches in the taking of a direct free kick on the wall, then you give an indirect free kick. The goal would never happen because you're going to blow the whistle and give an indirect free kick. So once you've got everybody where you want them to be, we want you to move to the position to be able to see the next phase of play. And what we mean by the next phase of play is the next thing that is most likely to happen. So if you're in the kind of a play or a kind of a free kick where you expect the player is just going to shoot on goal, then we want you to take a position where you can see the wall without being in the way of the shot. And the reason we want you to be able to see the wall is because if someone shoots the ball into the wall and there's a handball in the wall, you need to be able to see the front of the wall to be able to see if a handball has occurred. The most likely next decision you're going to have to make on a free kick that is a shot on goal is a potential handball in the wall. So if you have a free kick where the likely scenario you're going to have happen next is a player is going to shoot the ball, then we want you to take up a position where you can see the front of the wall for any potential handball offenses. If you're anticipating a cross from the free kick, meaning it's been off, the free kick's off to the sides, or maybe it's a little too far away for a shot, if they're setting up like they're going to cross the ball, then we want you to go to what we call the drop zone. And by drop zone, we mean the spot where the ball is going to land after the free kick is taken. So I'll show you an example here. This is a scenario here. It's highly unlikely this player is going to shoot. And we know this because it's way off to the right here, and it's a little bit too far from goal. And you've got all these players setting up over here, which would suggest this guy's going to cross the ball. And if you look at him, he's actually looking at all the players over here as well. So he's trying to pinpoint who he's going to play this ball to. So everything about this scenario makes us think this is going to be a ball that is crossed. Now, if the free kick had been over here by where the referee is standing, high likelihood that's going to be a shot. That's a very different scenario. But in this one that we're going to look at, we can very, very highly guess that this player is going to cross the ball. And we want to anticipate that. And so if he's going to cross the ball, the very likely scenario is that it's going to drop somewhere over here. He's going to play it across the penalty area and hope that one of his players heads the ball. So this is where we want you to be, because the next likely decision you have to make on a cross is going to be where the ball lands. Okay, so watch what this referee does. So the problem with this is at the moment the free kick is taken, now the referee is really far away from this player going to ground, this player jumping to try to win the ball. Whereas if he had gone back before the free kick was taken and had taken up a position over here, now when the ball gets crossed, instead of having to run to get into position, he could be right here with a clear view of this, a clear view of that, instead of being way over here and pretty significantly out of position. So when we say take up a position on the field to see the next phase of play, this is what we're talking about. Take up a spot close to where the next decision is going to be. If it's a free kick that's going to be a shot on goal, we want you looking into the wall. If it's a free kick that's going to be a cross, we want you standing over closer to where the ball would land on that anticipated cross. Now, don't go stand right in and among the players, obviously. We don't want you to be in the way. But standing right out here would have been ideal for this referee. And as you can see from this free kick, we want you standing right in this area to be able to see whatever happens here. Not way over here, and as you can see, having to run and now turn your head. You notice there, right? The AR is going up with a flag. He's got to turn his head. He can't see any of this. Whereas if he had been over here, he could look at this and out of his peripheral vision, see the assistant referee put the flag up. So when we say we want you to move to the position needed to see the next phase of play, this is what we're talking about. Anticipate what's going to happen next and put yourself into a position to see it. Once you're in the place that you want to be, blow the whistle to restart play. That lets everybody know you're happy with the wall, you're happy with where the ball is, you've gotten to a place where you can see the next decision, and now you're going to restart play. So let me show you a very good example of all of this in action. This is from the Women's World Cup this past summer. Quick question, can anybody hear this? Do you have good sound on this? Or is it just silent? Silent, okay. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to hear the referee because it's actually really good what the referee is saying. All right. So I'll play it all the way through and then I'll help you dissect it.
Ya tenemos reversa y hay behind por los costados. Tengo otra también que está lista. Ahora reversa cambió, pero no sé poneme la GT de la GT ataque de la barrera. El metro, de acá no veo cuánto está, pero está más difícil. Vale. ¿Vale?
So that is how we administer a free kick. So let me walk you through it. As we talked, she's called a foul and she's gone over to the spot of the ball. So she's standing here. We don't see the whole foul. The clip doesn't give us that. The players know it's going to be a free kick, so they've already backed up a little bit. You see this a lot in the women's game. I wish you saw it more in the men's game. The women tend to just go and stand where they're supposed to be. The men like to argue and complain and be forced to move. I don't know why that happens, but it happens all the time. So they've already gone back to where they think they're going to need to be, but the referee stands over the ball and waits until the player has put the ball down in a spot that she's happy with. Notice she's staying there with her while she adjusts the ball, and it's not until the player stands back up and backs away that the referee starts to walk away. Now she's confident that that ball's not going to get moved. So this is where you want an AR, either the AR over here or the trail AR over here, to now keep their eye on this ball. Because the next thing the referee is going to do, as we've discussed, is walk forward the 10 yards to set the wall. Now at this point, she's marked off 10. They need to back up. And if you could hear her while she was speaking, she was saying, come on, ladies, come back here, please. Ladies, back here, please. Ladies, back here, please. She was asking them to come, and they were backing up for her. But in this moment, as you see the referee come back into the screen, she's actually going to now tell the wall, the attacking players in the wall in red, you can't come any closer. So watch her talk to the players there. Stop right there. Don't come any closer. That's where you need to stand. So while she's setting the defensive players, she's also telling the attacking players who want to be in front of the wall, you can't come any closer. Now she has everybody where she wants them. She's going to make sure they're going to stay where they are. One player runs out of the wall, and so she waits for the next player to come in. And she's saying, are you guys good there? Okay, don't move, don't move. She then does something that you won't do. She pulls out the spray because she uses spray in her game. And she puts the line down. But what's important here is she's gotten these players where she wants them. She's taken the time to get them back far enough. She's given the goalkeeper time to get the wall set. They're settled where she wants them to be. And now she's going to talk to them. Now, the thing that we didn't cover, because it's a little bit more advanced, but if you're following along, you can think about this. These players are inside the penalty area. As we talked a couple of minutes ago, one of the most common next decisions the referee will have to make is a potential handball in the wall if this is a shot on goal. So she's telling these players in the wall, look, you're inside the penalty area. Please be careful with your hands, because if you handle the ball in the wall, it's going to be a penalty kick, and we don't want to see that happen. So she's talking to them right now, and notice how she points to her hand. Right there, she's saying, don't put your hands up, because if you do and the ball hits it, it's going to be a penalty kick. Stay where you are, don't move. She gives them instructions. And then she gives the attacking players instructions. Don't move. Don't get closer to the wall. Once she's done with that, she then backpedals to a place where she can see the next likely decision. Because if a shot comes, she needs to be able to see the wall. And now she's out in front, and she can also see the players in her peripheral vision here. The assistant referee can see these players here. So this is the ideal position for this referee to stand, to be able to see what she needs to see. and then she blows the whistle for the free kick. She realizes at the last second that she can't see the defensive players in the wall because of the attacking players, and so she takes a more severe angle to be able to see through them, and as expected, shot on goal. Any questions on the breakdown of that video? So I'll play it in real time one more time. For your games, you have a little bit less to worry about. You don't have the spray. You're not going to have as many times these attacking players in the wall. So you can probably do this more quickly than this referee does. But this is really, really excellent free kick management here from this referee. Starting all the way back at the beginning, placing the ball. Don't move the ball. She walks away, paces off the 10 yards. Backs up the players, holds the attacking wall. Everybody good here? Nope. Okay, we're going to make a change in the wall. Great. Okay, you're good. Don't move. Okay. Now the wall is set. She's comfortable. She puts it down. Gives the instructions to the players about handball in the wall. Gives the attackers in the wall instructions. Backs up into the position she needs to be able to see the next phase of play, and blows the whistle to restart. Really excellent free kick management here. Well done from this referee. Any questions on this topic of how to manage a free kick? We have a question here. What if the attackers are taller than the defenders when they stand in front of them? Is there an exception to that? The answer is no. The only thing the laws in the game don't allow attackers to do is stand within 1 meter of the wall. Height differences are irrelevant. That's not anybody's problem. Players can stand anywhere on the field they want as long as they're in line with the laws of the game, which tell us that they can't be any closer than 1 meter from a defensive wall. Other questions on this topic of free kick management? All right, we've got a few more minutes. Are there any general questions that folks would like to ask? Situations they've had in games, scenarios they've come across. Feel free to use the chat feature if you want to take a couple of minutes to answer or ask any questions that I can answer for you. I'm going to scroll back through a few of the questions we had earlier that were a little off topic, but now that we have some time, we can answer them. We had a question here. Can a player run over the ball and a second player take the kick on a direct free kick or an indirect free kick? The answer to that is yes. The only time they can't do that is on the taking of a penalty kick. That is not allowed. Question here. What do we do about defensive players running up to the ball right after a foul has been called? Excellent question. He's talking about defenders who are going to try to delay the restart of the game by running up and getting in the way. That's one of the reasons we want you to run to the spot of the foul when you call a foul. Because if a player tries to run in there and delay the restart, now you're there and you can tell the player, hey, please back up. Don't delay the restart. You can proactively manage that instead of waiting until they kick the ball away, cause frustration, and maybe even earn a yellow card. So if you run to the spot of the foul when you call it, you can perhaps prevent players with your voice from going in and delaying that restart. What determines the ball actually moved on an indirect free kick? Patrick, I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Can you rephrase it for me? Question here, going back to your answer that a player can run and touch the ball as the first touch of a direct free kick. Is it true the first touch must be a kicking motion? The answer to that is no, that is not true. We don't care how a player kicks the ball or causes the ball to move. The only thing the law says about the taking of a free kick is once it is touched and clearly moves. That's all that IFAB cares about, is that it has been touched and that it clearly moves. So if someone just taps the top of the ball and it doesn't clearly move, Now we can't allow that restart to happen. We need to stop and have them retake it. Because if the ball doesn't clearly move, it's not been a proper restart. But how they touch the ball doesn't matter if it's a kicking motion. They can kick it. They can roll their cleats over it. They can fall down and let their hip touch it. They can get down and have their knee or their thigh hit it. Doesn't matter how they touch it. The law just says that they touch it and that it moves clearly. John, does that answer your question for you? Question here, what if while you're getting the wall situated, you get spit on, but you have no idea who it was and your sideline doesn't? What's the call? Well, like with anything, if you don't know who did something, there's nothing you can really do about it. So that's why we don't want you to turn your back to the players in the wall. If you turn your back to the ball and you pace off the 10 yards, if someone spits on you, you should have your head up and you should know who did it. You should know which direction it came from. You can probably hear it, and you should be able to identify that player if your head is up and you're paying attention while you set that wall. Just scrolling through some of the other questions. Give me just a moment. Question here from a while ago. After you tell them to stand back and they jump in front of the ball, is it a yellow card? Doesn't have to be. I think the law says you may give a caution, not you shall give a caution. So I think you need to use your best judgment in that scenario. If you have told them to back up and they still encroach at the taking of the free kick, then yeah, you can give a yellow card. If you're telling them to back up and somebody tries to play the ball quick, then maybe we don't give a yellow card for that. On a PK, the kicker kicks the ball before the whistle and misses. What is the restart? On a PK, you cannot kick the ball before the whistle is blown. So regardless of what the outcome is, the play technically hasn't been restarted because the referee hasn't blown the whistle. What I would suggest is that you're paying attention, and if the player starts to run up, you blow the whistle and tell him he has to wait. So don't allow it to happen. Try to be preventative. But if your back is turned for some reason, he just kicks the ball. It doesn't matter. Play wasn't restarted because you hadn't blown the whistle yet. Question here, to the point untouched and clearly moved. If they touch the top of the ball and it bounces, thus vertical movement, but no horizontal movement, does that qualify? Or does clearly moves mean horizontal movement? So I usually say this at least once per webinar. Please don't try to read anything extra into the laws of the game. All it says is that it clearly moves. It doesn't say anything about horizontal movement. It doesn't say anything about vertical movement. All it says is that it moves. And so if the ball moves, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. Don't read more into the laws of the game that exist. They're very simple for a reason. Question here, what if you're walking away from the ball, the player near the ball spits on you? What's the call? Guys, we've already talked about spitting. I've refereed for 25 years and I've never been spit on. So let's try to talk about things that actually happen sometimes in games, not random miscellaneous things that we can all sit around and make up. At what time the players in the wall can move? Can they move forward immediately after the whistle is blown, or they have to wait until the ball is kicked? They have to wait until the ball is kicked to be any closer than 10 yards from the ball. Once you've set the wall, if the players want to back up farther away from the ball, that's completely their prerogative. They can move wherever they want as long as they don't get within 10 yards of the ball. They have to wait until after the ball is kicked and clearly moves to get within 10 yards of the ball. We have a question about offside in a U10, U12 game. I'm actually going to defer on that question because I'm not sure that I understand what they're talking about. When you have to stop play to issue a red card during play to prevent a confrontation, what is the proper restart when the ball is away from the confrontation? The answer to that is going to be whatever the reason was for the red card. Is it a direct free kick or an indirect free kick after that? I'm pretty sure every single red card offense is a direct free kick. So if somebody punches somebody, kicks somebody, does anything off the ball that requires a red card, your restart will be whatever the appropriate free kick is away from the ball. that you had to give for the foul for the red card. Question here for taunting, if that was what the red card is for, that would be a verbal offense, as is quoted in the laws of the game, and you would give an indirect free kick for a verbal offense. It's all in the laws of the game, folks. Any other questions before we part company for the evening? We have a question here about the primary criteria for a caution on a tactical foul. I would encourage you to go to the CNRA YouTube page and find the entire presentation that I've done on tactical fouls. That's not a question that I can answer quickly. We have a question about drop ball restarts. Again, I would ask you to go and look at the presentation I did on the laws of the game changes, because we cover drop balls on that one. If you give a yellow card for over celebrating, what is the restart? The restart would be whatever the reason the ball went out of play to begin with. If they are celebrating after a goal was scored, then you would restart like a goal was scored, because a goal was scored. And so you would go and do a kickoff. That's the most common situation you have for over celebrating, is somebody who scored a goal, they remove their shirt, or they do whatever it is that they're going to do. That all happens while the ball is not in play. And so your restart goes back to the original restart from when the ball went out of play. If for some reason there's excessive celebration after a throw-in, then you would give the yellow card, and then you would have the throw-in, just like you would have even without the celebration. For things that happen while the ball is not in play, the restart is the original restart from when the ball went out of play, however that happened. So if you have a throw-in to the red team, and then across the field somewhere a red player punches a white player in the face, you give the red card, and then you go back to the original throw-in. And I think we have somebody making a joke, so this is going to be the last question of the evening. What if someone celebrates really hard and spits on you? With that, folks, I bid you a good night, and I thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of the week. Bye-bye.